According to the policy brief of the Senate Economic Planning 2011, the announcement of the K-12 education system has triggered different reactions. The system of basic education in the country is in urgent need of revival. The main question, though, is, will the K-12 education system solve education dilemma in the Philippines, or will just aggravate the present position? Hello everybody, this is Marie. I have the Department of Education Undersecretary for Finance and Administration, Mr. Francisco Varela. Thanks so much for taking the time, Mr. Varela. I really do appreciate it. I have a few questions to pepper you with, if that's all right with you.
Please, go ahead.
It has been suggested that a K-12 education program has many benefits. One of those benefits is that it is supposed to assist in alleviating poverty. What evidence is there to support this proposition?
Well, we are implementing the K-12 program precisely as a critical component of the overall education reform agenda to improve quality of education. And the main issue that is being addressed is the congestion in the curriculum under the 10-year basic education curriculum that we have at present. So we are decongesting the curriculum, at the same time enhancing the curriculum by adding topics and improving the design of some of the subjects that are now taught in our basic education institutions. Now, it is important to note that this is just a component of an overall reform agenda. So we do agree with critics who say that there are other problems, critical issues that need to be addressed in the Philippine educational system. And the K-12 program is not by itself a silver bullet that will solve the problems of education in the Philippines. So we are addressing the critical resource gaps in terms of lack of classrooms, lack of teachers. We are addressing the issue of the training and of our teachers, and we are working with higher educational institutions, our colleges and universities who are training teachers for the future. These are ongoing programs, but at the same time we believe that all of these reforms will have limited impact if we don't address the problem of the curriculum design. And as you may have read already, the Philippines is one of the few remaining countries who have retained a 10-year basic education curriculum.
Okay. Another suggested benefit of the K-12 education program is that it helps assist in decreasing unemployment. What can you say to the fact that countries that adopted K-12 program, but the unemployment rate of their graduates is high?
Well, unemployment is a function of so many things, primarily economic issues, and even with a well-educated workforce, you will always have periods of high unemployment depending on the overall economic conditions. As you know, countries go through business cycles, and therefore the quality of the education system by itself is not sufficient to provide jobs. But what we are saying is that we have to make our graduates ready for more meaningful employment, and that is why that is one of the reasons for the K-12 reform agenda. The situation at present is that only about 23-25% of our students enter college. the rest either drop out of school, even in the elementary years, in the high school years, and a lot of those who finish high school don't proceed to college. And the employment opportunities that are available to these students are quite limited, given that a typical high school graduate does not have the skills needed for more gainful employment. So the K-12 program, aside from decongesting the curriculum, would include enhanced subjects, particularly in the area of technical vocational subjects, if that would be the interest of the student. That would allow them to apply for more meaningful, more gainful employment than what would be available to them if they only complete the 10-year basic education cycle.
Another suggested benefit of K-12 education system is that it is supposed to assist in accelerating a country's economic growth. What is the point of turning up graduates where the economy doesn't need them? We are wondering where the jobs are.
Well, as you put it, jobs are created by capital, but the question is, what would be the reasons for capital to be attracted to a particular economy? And it is a well-established fact that in deciding where to put up investments, business executives look at the quality of the workforce. So that is true. There is no debate about the importance of attracting capital. It is important, and there are several factors that affect the decision of businesses and investors when they make their investment decisions. But I don't think it is an issue of debate that the quality of the workforce is one of those critical factors that businesses and investors consider.
When a country like America's projected economic growth for the next 2 or 3 years is only 2%, if you think that it does contribute to economic growth, is it really only an insignificant percentage?
I don't think it is correct to look at the K-12 agenda in the context of short-term economic objectives. That is not the point at all. I don't think that it is our claim that if we implement K-12 that we will have short-term economic growth. This is a long-term development issue rather than a growth issue. And we're talking about developing the manpower resource base of our country for the long term. And I think it's a futile debate to talk about short-term economic projections. And as I said, there are economies go through business cycles, and we will have that. Economies all over the world will experience that. But the point is that a well-educated workforce would be able to lift the what you would call the production curve of the economy, and that is a long-term development issue. But in the short term, you will always have business cycles. There are factors, there are external developments that affect growth. These are not issues that would be addressed by K-12.
Where do we get the funding for this K-12 program, or how is the government going to fund this?
Yeah, I think that is an important point to emphasize, that the K-12 program, as envisioned now by the Aquino administration, is not just a reform of the curriculum but at the same time, it is a commitment on the part of government to provide additional education resources for the people. And you could implement K-12 by simply requiring it as a condition for finishing basic education, as a condition for entering college. The free universal secondary education that we now have was not there 2 decades ago, 2-3 decades ago. But we had high schools, and most of our high school students paid for, because there was not enough public high schools that would absorb these students. So in terms of percentage, in the past 2-3 decades ago, the percentage of high school students paying on their own was much higher than what we have now. But with the provision of free secondary education, more and more students have been able to avail of free public education, and that is also the intent for the senior high school program, the additional 2 years under the K-12 program. This will be provided for free by government for those students who intend to stay with public schools. We're also looking at arrangements with private schools that some of the graduates of the public high schools would be able to enter private schools, but with some kind of government subsidy or support. Now, the question, does government have resources to support this program? And we have made our computations. It's quite significant, but it is definitely well within the means of the Philippine government and the nation, if only we collectively as a nation put the highest priority on education. The range of estimates for the cost of the program would be in the area of about 40 to 50 billion pesos per year for the initial years of implementation. After that, it will taper off a bit, because some of that cost would be the construction of classrooms, and initially for the first 2 years that would be quite significant. After that, we would still need to build classrooms, but not as many, just to absorb the increase in enrollment. Now, we've simulated the effect of that, and we have determined that an expenditure of about high 2% or 3% of GDP would be sufficient to support the requirements of the K-12 program. Now, is that within the means of the Philippine government? Definitely yes. In fact, we were spending about 3% of GDP a decade ago. Now, the past decade, we've seen a sustained reduction in our education spending to a low of just above 2%. In the past 2 years, we have been able to increase that. So we're beginning to inch up, but we would really need to bring up the total education spending to the level of 3%. And it's a matter of setting our priorities. At the same time, of course, that requires that we have a healthy fiscal environment, and we are confident that the country is well on its way towards a much stronger fiscal position. In fact, even now, we are seeing that with a much lower deficit, and that's something that can be sustained in the next few years, and therefore will give us the fiscal space to increase overall education spending.
Do you think that the introduction of the K-12 education system in the Philippines, if adopted, should be introduced slowly at grade 1 and then follow that age group all the way through until the end of their 12 years of education rather than implement it at a faster rate, which will be very disruptive and confusing to students who have to bridge both the K-10 and K-12 education program?
Well, that is in fact the plan. The implementation will start with grade 1, but we've also determined that that would we would be missing out on the the development impact would be postponed too much into the future, and the determination is that we can actually start reforming already the first year curriculum. So the change in the grade 1 curriculum will happen side by side with the change in the first year curriculum, so that entrance to high school in the next school year would already be using the new high school curriculum, and they would continue to the senior high school program when they finish the 4 years of what we now would call as junior high school. So it's not really that all of them will be, that you will be implementing the change in the curriculum for all year levels. So for next school year, the grade 2 students will continue to be using the old curriculum until they finish grade 6. Because the implementation of the curriculum would be on a yearly basis. But when they enter high school, they would already be using the new curriculum. So effectively, we would be managing the implementation of the new curriculum for 2 grade levels. So grade 1 and first year. In the next year, it will be grade 2 and second year, and so on and so forth.
Isn't it true that no matter how good your education curriculum is, it is almost meaningless when commonly in the Philippines you have up to 40 children in one classroom or dilapidated classroom being taught by one teacher, unqualified teacher?
Correct. That's why I said earlier that this is part of an overall comprehensive reform agenda. So there is no debate there, and therefore the efforts of the Department of Education are not limited to the implementation of the K-12 program. Even now, we are addressing those critical input gaps and shortages.
The K-12 education system curriculum is supposed to provide a better quality education for all. Doesn't it really provide a greater quantity of education rather than a better quality of education?
No, definitely it is a reform that is driven by the need to improve quality. So quality is the main objective. Obviously, no one's talking about just prolonging the years that students spend in school. So quality and learning are the objectives of the reform agenda, and the main contention is that our students are not able to learn as much as they should in the current curriculum design because of a very congested curriculum. So, but when you decongest the curriculum, you need to make sure also that all the other inputs are there, and therefore, what we talked about earlier, the training of teachers, the quality of teachers, all the other inputs that are critical in creating a conducive learning environment have to be addressed as well.
Are you really just trying to spread the current 10-year system over 12 years, thereby decongesting it?
No, it's really it's spreading it at the same time enhancing the curriculum, both in terms of the subjects themselves, meaning you can have more topics in a particular subject, but at the same time we are also talking about adding new subjects, particularly in the senior high school program.
Where can people in the community go for additional information about K-12?
What we've done when we began planning the K-12 program was to go all over the country with workshops and seminars for DepEd personnel. We call this our Speakers Bureau training. And we did this for all of the regions where we gathered our superintendents and some of our principals, supervisors in the schools divisions of DepEd. And the idea there was to begin cascading the advocacy and education campaign for K-12. We also know that other groups have done similar, have implemented similar programs. So the advocacy at present is really focused on workshops and discussions in communities led by DepEd personnel and hopefully even some of our LGU leaders, and that is one of the groups that DepEd had reached out to in the early implementation or in early advocacy of K-12. So that's if we're talking about communities, we suggest that they talk to their school principals, they talk to the teachers, and these are the main sources of information at the community level. But I guess as we ramp up the advocacy for the program, what is being worked on now would be our I guess more mass-based communication campaigns, but the department is not yet implementing that at present.
Oh, I'm conscious with your time, sir. I just want to applaud you for the work you're doing and for getting out in front of the media and helping people understand. I really do appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Pleasure explaining the program to you and our audience.